What is going on, Ravens flock? Welcome back to the Flock Files. I'm your host, Corey, the home of Ravens news, breakdowns, and bold opinions. If you're just tired of the boring Ravens takes and you want real, first-hand fan opinions, then you're in the right place. Let's get into it. What is going on, Ravens flock? Welcome to another episode of Flock Files. I'm your host, Corey. And today I just wanted to touch base on some of the new coaching hires, assistant coaches hires. Obviously, Anthony Weaver is hired and officially the Ravens' new defensive coordinator, as well as futures of Linderbaum. And then I wanted to touch base on a few exciting mock drafts that have come across my eyes that, I think would be awesome if we got these players. Obviously, this is very early on. Things will change as teams find out what their new coaches want and what direction they want to go in, as well as the combine and measurements and, unfortunately, some injuries that may happen off the field. And, these names will change come April, but there are a few people that I have seen come across the board that I really think would help this Ravens team immensely right from the start. First off, I'd like to go back a little bit, actually, and talk about something that I think is kind of interesting, but also very important in my eyes. The fact that Jesse Minter stayed cool, calm, and collective along with the Ravens front office and went ahead and hired assistant coaches before really worrying about the offensive coordinator position. I think this shows that Minter was dead set on somebody like Ledford. And the importance of that is that the Ravens' offensive line was not good last year. And they were not good the year before that. Lamar Jackson was very unsettled at most of the times in the pocket. Derrick Henry, although he ended up finishing second in rushing this year, it was just, there were a couple games where he completely went off on. Packers game, Patriots game, Bills game to start off the season. But there were a lot of games this year where he only had 50 or 60 yards. And it's not good enough. I think Ledford might be one of the brightest, if not the brightest, offensive line coach in the entire league. And to have him here to bluster this offensive line and coach up and completely transform the players that we already have, as well as, the new young guys who are coming in, I think Ledford was a huge hire. I just think too many people are looking past that because everyone's so concerned in, the big three, the head coach, the DC, and the offensive coordinator. And while I've given my opinions on the offensive coordinator and obviously Jesse Minter, the head coach, I think Ledford is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, hires that the Ravens have made this offseason. I'm really excited to see what he can bring to the table. When he was in Atlanta ran a lot of outside zones on offense with Bijan Robinson and were very successful. I think that Derrick Henry, even though people look at him as a big back, run him up the middle, the A gap, the zero gap. No, I think Derrick Henry's runs are best when they're outside. And then we have people like Keaton Mitchell, who obviously his speed is better on the outside as well. So hopefully he brings that outside run game here to Baltimore and just really has these guards pulling and doing whatever they need to do to seal that edge. And I think Derrick Henry is going to have another career year going into next year. I really do. Again, he finished second in rushing this year, which is really hard to believe because there were some games where I was like, how the hell is Derrick Henry only have 60 yards? How has he only touched the ball 12 times? Like, it did not seem like a great year, but he finished the year second, and, that's a huge accomplishment from him, being that most of the year was a struggle for the rest of the team. So imagine what he can do and what Ledford can do for this offensive line to bring his game up even another level. And then it looks like Joe Lombardi, obviously was the Denver Broncos offensive coordinator. Looks like he's going to be coming over now to be an offensive assistant here. Just another great offensive mind on the staff that, another brain that can be picked for Deacon Doyle, who's a young offensive coordinator with a lot to prove. Just surrounding him with some veteran guys that have been around the league, and the play calls and the bulk of the offense is going to run through Doyle, But to have these other offensive minds be brought in for him to bounce ideas off of and kind of learn, you know, as well as the offensive mind that he's already learned from being Sean Payton and Ben Johnson, I just think this team isn't messing around anymore. These hires that have been going on this offseason, it's funny because I'm a Ravens fan who lives in Chicago. So I get a lot of smack talk from Chicago fans like, oh, like, you know, you Ravens fans, you think every hire you make is a great hire. You know, you think every coach is a good hire, blah, 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 this and that. Like, yes, I do. I think obviously it's on paper right now. And on paper, last year, according to Vegas, we were supposed to win the Super Bowl. So on paper doesn't really mean all that much, but it's also all that we have to go off of right now. So until September comes and they prove how good they are or how good they aren't, on paper, the hires that the Baltimore Ravens have made over the last month, I think this is arguably the best coaching staff in the entire National Football League. And that's saying a lot because we have someone like Declan Doyle who has never called plays on this staff. And I'm still willing to say that if this isn't the best coaching staff in the entire league, it's top 3 for sure. There's no questions about it. There are just big name after big name after big name that Baltimore is reeling in. And they're not playing around anymore, and I love that. We've been playing around for way too many years. John Harbaugh was always hiring friends and friends of friends, and instead of going with, you know, the hot hire, you know, the big name, the up-and-coming name, he always kept it close within, and he would never, like, go out of his circle, and that just used to piss me off, and I'm so glad that we are beyond that point. I'm so excited for September. Another hire that happened today actually comes from one of our rivals, Eddie Faulkner. He spent the last 7 years with the Steelers as running backs coach. He helped shape people like Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell in Pittsburgh. And now he's teaming up with one of the greatest running backs of all time in Derrick Henry. So I am ecstatic for this hire as well. Again, it's just big name after big name. And even the big names who don't have any prior coaching statistics to go off of, such as Declan Doyle, just the minds that he's learned under and been around for the last couple years is just hypes me up so much. He's been in those rooms with those coaches, those offensive minds, doing nothing but studying and learning and pulling information, situational information from these coaches, what works, what doesn't work. And obviously he'll put his own spin on things, but it's so exciting what's going on in Baltimore right now, and, you know, just envisioning what the future might look like. And lastly, with the coaches, obviously Anthony Weaver is the big name that is coming to Baltimore officially as defensive coordinator. He was in the running to be the Ravens' next head coach. They decided to go with Jesse Minter. They got the best of both worlds when Miami hired another defensive coordinator, and the Ravens front office and Jesse Minter pounced on bringing Weaver in as the defensive coordinator. He's another guy, just like Jesse Minter, where any of the other players that are talking and coaches that are talking, and they just have nothing but great things to say about him. They say he's so well respected by his players. Players want to play for him. He really knows how to get people in the right mindset for game day, for competition, for war. And, you know, that's something that's been missing in this locker room for a long time, quite a few years. And, you know, if it's not going to come from a direct player, hopefully him being a defensive coordinator and in that room and with those guys, he can kind of help guide leadership for this team. He obviously was in Baltimore for a couple seasons, had a pretty good career. I think his highest sack season was 14 and a half sacks. So, you know, he definitely wasn't just a no-name. He made his impact in the league. He was with the Ravens as a coach, you know, a few years ago as well, when John Harbaugh decided to go with Zach Orr over Weaver then for the defensive coordinator position, and now he gets his shot. I think the best thing about the Anthony Weaver hire, obviously everything is going to run through Jesse Minter still. He's still the head honcho. He's the head guy. He's the head coach. But Jesse Minter is known for DBs and secondary. Weaver's known for offensive line and the front seven. So being able to pick each other's brain and come up with the best defensive game plans this next season, having an elite coach for the DBs and an elite coach on that front seven, it's just the best of both worlds. I couldn't have asked for anything better, honestly. I think this head coach and defensive coordinator hire, obviously for the defensive perspective of this team, is amazing. If this team isn't a top 5 defense next year, it will be a huge disappointment. And there's no excuses that this is the first year, new system. They got to no. With the talent that we have and the talent we will continue to bring in, if this defense isn't top 5 next year, it was a letdown. All this hype was for nothing. And we'll get laughed at for hyping all these coaches up. And hopefully that's not the case. Lastly, I'd just like to focus in on some fun, some mock drafts that have come my way. Of course, these are very early mock drafts, so you just never know. But the most exciting one I saw was from an ESPN analyst last night. And at number 14, he had Jordan Tyson falling to the Ravens. I think that would be amazing. I think he's the best receiver in the draft by far. I think Tate is up there with him. I think him and Tate are the only 2 receivers worth a first-round draft pick. However, Tate really diminished his stats and his availability down the stretch in the playoffs, and especially in that semifinal game when they lost. He was nowhere to be found. I don't really like that about him. That kind of makes me nervous. Obviously, it's just 1 or 2 games, and it could have just been a down week or a bad offensive game plan to get him involved. But I do think Jordan Tyson is the much better receiver out of those 2, and I would gladly take him. I think if they do bring in Jordan Tyson, I think they trade away Rashad Bateman, which also opens some interesting doors as to acquiring some more draft picks or maybe another player, another veteran receiver. But if Jordan Tyson is there at 14, I think that's the way the Ravens have to go. I know a lot of fans and the Ravens community want us to focus on the trenches and nothing but the trenches. But I don't think that the trenches, it shouldn't be as big of a worry as a lot of people are making it seem. This draft is extremely deep in the trenches on both sides of the ball. I think you can get superstars, day 1 starters that make immediate impacts in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th round. There's 2 tackles that are worthy of being picked at 14. I think both of them will be picked inside the top 10. If one of those guys are there, I can see taking an offensive line guy. If neither of those names are there, then you have to go wide receiver in Jordan Tyson if he's there. And even if Jordan Tyson's not there, I don't even think you necessarily have to go edge at that position. Go get a cornerback. Go get a skilled player who's ready to take over on this Ravens defense, because the Ravens don't pick in the low teens very often. And again, I think you can find lineman gems everywhere in the draft, but especially in this draft, it's so deep. I think that we are going to get some great guys on the offense and defensive line in the mid rounds, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's where the heart of this draft is. In the 2nd round, then he had us taking LT Overton, the edge from Alabama. I also don't hate this pick, but in my opinion, there's better options there in the 2nd round. I mean, who knows how the draft board is going to fall, but I think Romello Height, he's a dog. He plays like a Raven. He's got that motor, plays to the whistle, hard hits. Really the biggest knock on him for me is the fact that he's already a little bit older. He'll be turning 25 before the draft. So, he's a little bit older of a player, but with that high motor, that Raven style of defense, brings fear to that offense that he's going up against, and, hopefully brings success to this Ravens defensive line, paired up with Mike Green and some of the veterans. I think he would be a steal in the 2nd round, someone I'm really pushing for. But I do think there are other names besides LT Overton in that 2nd round. I've also seen names like TJ Parker from Clemson mocked to us, another edge. If we can get him in the 2nd round, maybe, but definitely not with the 14th overall pick. I think he's severely overrated. Obviously, my biggest choice every year for the Ravens is to trade up. Usually trading up when they're picking in the mid to late 20s, because in my opinion, it's starting to be hit or miss there. But this year especially, you're at 14, go get Bane. Go get him. Go get a generational talent edge rusher that's going to be with the team for the next decade if you play your cards right. Just go do it. Trade Rashad Bateman. Go get him. Do what you need to do. Give up the draft picks. Go get him. I think that's the smartest move here. Obviously, with new leadership in the building, but same GM. I don't know exactly. They probably won't do that. They never have. They've never been a team to trade up. But with some of these coaching hires and how the offseason's gone so far, I just think the Ravens aren't messing around anymore. And maybe this year they switch it up and they do go attack and get that guy that they feel is a generational talent. But with that said, I'll have plenty more, draft topics and players and opinions coming up as the Senior Bowl has now ended and, the Combine is right around the corner and there'll be plenty of time to talk about guys like that. I just wanted to bring up, some of the mocks I've seen, particularly the one last night with Jordan Tyson going to SF 14, because if that happens, I will be ecstatic. I think he's a phenomenal wide receiver. I think he's going to translate well to the league. He's a big-bodied receiver, exactly what the Ravens have needed since Anquan Bolden. And I think that would be the right move, so that really excited me. If you've enjoyed today's video, please hit the like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications for up-to-the-minute Ravens coverage. Please don't hesitate to drop your take in the comments. I love hearing from the flock, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one.